Welcome to the Close Encounter Club. I'm your host, Justin Gearhart. For as long as Courtney can remember, she could see ghosts. When she was a toddler, she used to ask her mom, "Do you see her?" and point to the corner of the room. Her mom didn't see anything, but what Courtney saw was a little old woman, and their roommates saw her too. And the stories just get stranger from there. So Courtney's not just a guest, she's actually the host of a podcast called Jaunty Haunts, which blends humor and honesty with her first-hand accounts of the paranormal. But don't let the name fool you. Some of what she experiences, and continues to experience, isn't just light and quirky. It's real and visceral. We cover a lot in this conversation. Everything from ghosts in the subway, to protective spirits haunting childhood homes, to the burden of being sensitive to this kind of stuff in a world that doesn't seem to accept it. This episode also marks another pretty big chapter for the show. For the first time ever, you can watch this episode in full video on YouTube. But don't worry, if you're used to those audio-only episodes, you can still listen to them on your favorite podcast app. Nothing's going to change there. Let's get into it, shall we? Josh also joins us too for this one, so be on the lookout for him. This is episode 14, featuring Courtney from Jaunty Haunts. And welcome to the Close Encounter Club.
My name's Courtney. I have a podcast called Jaunty Haunts, where basically I talk about different spirits that I have witnessed and encountered in my life, and I interview people about their paranormal experiences. As my intro to my show says, I've been seeing ghosts since I was very little, very young. I kept it a secret for a very long time and tried to deal with it and hide it from people in my life. And finally, after talking with my grandma, my mom, my ancestors, learned this is a common thing in our family and realized instead of feeling like a weird outcast all the time, I bet there are other people who see stuff. And let's try to make like I said, like a safe space, a community where we can all talk about what we have seen and witnessed and feel a little less crazy together.
I love that. I listened to your podcast. I heard that intro before, and it sucked me in. And even your socials, I have to give you a lot of credit. I feel so awkward when I record for Close Encounter Club. I'm not sure if that comes across or not, but I definitely do. It just flows so natural with you. And when I saw a couple of your first reels, I was like hooked. I was like, I have to reach out to her. I have to tell her how awesome she is, because it definitely inspired me. Like just trying to talk more naturally to the camera and things like that. You are so good at that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Honestly, I have to say that's not like a hidden skill. I went to school for acting. So I have spent a lot of time in front of cameras learning to look like a normal human who's not awkward. So that's where that credit is due to acting programs.
That explains a lot. Like I said, I was in bands growing up when I was in my 20s and things like that. And I was always the guitar player. So I could go to the side of the stage.
You're like the
and
cool
not be,
guy on the side.
Yeah, I'm just like, don't look at me, look at the singer.
Yeah.
That's not me. that checks out. So yeah, I love Jaunty Haunts. The episodes I've listened to so far are really good. So I'd recommend that to any one of our listeners to check it out. I love the Jaunty Haunts name too, because it fits the vibe.
Thank you.
You do have some spooky parts that I've heard. I love the Casper rating. It's a brilliant idea, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you
so good.
much.
So yeah, really good. But I love that it's a little bit lighthearted, and it feels like it's very sincere. But at least some of the stuff I've heard is more jaunty, more cheerful, more just I don't know. It's really cool. Really good job.
I appreciate that. I feel like so many of the podcasts in this space can tend to be very welcome to Darkness on the Moon, which no hate against that, but I can't binge that. You know what I mean? And I'm like, if there's something that you want to hang out with and an energy you want to listen in all the time, I feel try to be a little more, I don't even know, if not positive, just realistic, right? Hey, this is where I am today. I don't know. And also, I just want to say, I really like your show as well. I love your audio quality is impeccable. I love your use of music and sound effects. And so I know you're relatively new as well, but I'm so excited to see where Close Encounters goes as well.
Heck yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. So I got to talk about these ghosts. because
Yeah.
not to do a hard pivot, but to do a hard pivot, I have not talked to someone that has really seen a ghost yet. You're actually the first one. We had one. It was
Okay.
the black dog of Hanging Hill, so it was like a ghost dog kind of, and that was more of like an urban legend. But you're the first guest that has seen ghosts.
Hmm.
Do you remember how old you were when you saw your first ghost?
Yeah, it's funny. This has kind of been like a common question, so I've had to really like sift through my brain. I'll tell you, and listeners as well, the first time that my family has told me that I've seen ghosts, and then my first memory. I think that helps clarify a little bit. We lived in a haunted house. I talk about this in episode 1 of Jaunty Haunts, but we lived in a haunted house. My mom had me as a teenager, so it was just the two of us, and we had some roommates. There was like this little old lady ghost who lived in the house, and it was like that moment in a horror movie my mom tells me where she'd hear like her baby crying, and she runs in, and I'm standing on my crib pointing to the corner going, "Mommy, see her? See her? Mama,
Oh,
see her?" And my mom is like, "What? Like, what?" And I'm like, and she's like, and that was in the beginning. And then like week after week, it like would be turn into just me laughing so hard as like a 2-year-old, like laughing. And she'd come in and be like, "You need to go to sleep." And I'd be like, "Ah," like pointing again. And like, I do have some very minimal, obviously I was like a toddler, memories of what she looked like, definitely like shorter, kind of round. And she had like her hair kind of slicked back in this like lower bun and like big glasses. And she had a cane. And I just like thought she was like a grandma or like a woman who lived with us, I think. She wasn't always there, And my mom's roommate saw her. She like actually presented herself a couple times. But the coolest story is one of the roommates, because they were in their early 20s. She had a college test one morning. She set her alarm for 7 p.m. instead of 7 a.m. And at 7:01, she felt a cold hand on her head, and she looked up, and it was the woman. And she's like, "I saw her fully." And so all 3 of the women who lived there saw her at some point or another. My first very visceral memory of seeing a ghost, though, I think I was like probably 5 or 6 in the grocery store. There was just like a man standing there kind of staring at me. He had like, overalls and kind of like a grungy t-shirt and like a trucker hat. And his eyes were really wide, and he was just like staring at me. And like, we have your kindergarten, first grade, about like stranger danger and, people who want to kidnap you or something. So I like grabbed my mom's hand really tight.
yeah.
And I kind of like tugged on it, and she's like, "What? What?" And I'm like pointing. She's like, "What?" I'm like, "That man." She's like, "What man?" I'm like, "That man." And she was like, "Sweetie, there's no man. What?" And I'm like,
Oh, geez.
oh, that's the first moment it kind of hit, like, oh, like not everybody sees him, So that's the first like very visceral like memory I have of seeing spirit.
Wow. So the way you're describing these ghosts that you're seeing feels very physical. Like it doesn't feel, obviously not like a sheet over the head, like in classic, like your logo actually, I think has ghost, right?
Yeah.
Not like that. And obviously I wouldn't expect that either, but there's no like effect or static or transparentness to it. It doesn't sound like, it sounds like they seem to appear just like a regular person, or is there something that is more identifiable that you've noticed?
Yeah. So it just depends. It depends always. Sometimes it is really just like a shadowy, smoky thing in the distance. Sometimes it is, excuse me, pardon me, I had a euro right before I started.
That's so good.
Sometimes it's more of just like, like the outline or silhouette of something. I talk a lot about, I would say it wrong, the opacity, but like,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
yeah. Like as an adult, right? I think as a child, it was a lot of that. It was a lot more just like clear, like a person standing right in front of you. Or it would be like a very, like a shadow figure, but like almost like it's like somebody who's as if they're in the room, but like somebody edited them to just like color them in completely black and they're glowing a little bit. I saw that a lot as a child. And then as I got older, it was less. I think because I was so much of like trying not to like pretend I didn't, ignore it, just being like no, I don't, whatever, no, and so then it would be more just like smoky little wisps or things that felt more, because I was trying so hard consciously to just block it out.
Mhm.
And then I've kind of learned since like my mid 20s to now being 30 that like it depends so much on where I am in my state of mind, my energy level, and like what the spirit's energy level is, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So like if it's a family ghost, like, oh, grandpa died here and he's here, and they talk about grandpa all the time, and they know every night at 5 o'clock grandpa would have a beer, so it kind of smells like Budweiser every day at 5 o'clock, like
Yeah.
it's almost like his spirit is stronger. So I could see grandpa really well because he's talked about it. The energy is very, whereas if it's a spirit that died here in New York, like in a graveyard in 1654, maybe it's just more like a shadow, because it's not as prevalently spoken about, remembered, and like almost like that energy is more dissolved into the atmosphere. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah.
So the idea there is that like by remembering the people who have passed, or by actively engaging in, some sort of conversation about them, you're creating some sort of energy that they can draw on to
Yes.
make their kind of ghostly or spirit selves more prevalent, right?
Correct. Yes. Obviously there's no science behind it, but that's just what I've, in my 31 years, that's what I've come to notice, at least.
I think there might be some science behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there might actually be some science behind it. Some of the people we've spoken to and some of the things we've sort of looked into in preparation for Get have, alluded to the idea that there is a true energy that exists in like kind of word transference or behavioral actions that then can potentially be utilized or picked up by other living individuals. And so there's something really interesting there. That's really interesting. Sorry to interrupt.
Cool. Oh, that's okay.
No interruption.
And what I can say too, I mean, especially when it comes to relating it to, science or something we can think of, just like putting it in real world terms. If we're nervous about something or someone is intimidating us, like just the energy that we give and share and take every day, if you have like a really shitty day and then you like come home and you're like, well, I just, like think of how much more like energy you're exerting compared to when you're just like neutral and you're driving home and you're not thinking about anything, and then you're like, oh, hey, do you want to order some pizza? Like just the general vibes, right? Like it's so different. So if somebody also was like murdered really brutally, that ghost is going to be stronger than someone who just like was 83 and fell asleep and didn't wake up. You know what I mean? Like that's also going to make a big difference in terms of what the spirit is going to resonate as, or what I might see or pick up on.
Yeah, and I think also too, there's power in numbers, and what I mean by that is there's a lot of people out there that share the same experience that you just described, and would describe it the same way as well. And I talk about this with Josh often, with not just ghosts, but just with a lot of phenomena, including like UFOs and time slips and all this stuff. That if you go on Reddit and you search, all the subreddits that I'm sure we both frequent, or all three of us frequent a lot. There's either two paths I see in my mind. Either everyone is brainwashed and everyone's just trying to regurgitate what they're reading, or these phenomenon are real. That seems to be the two cases, right?
There's power there, though. I mean, aside from the fact that I think it's the law of conservation of energy, is state that energy does not disappear; it just transfers from one state to another. But so what you're saying, Justin and Courtney, what you just mentioned, I think a really good example of that power in numbers thing for me is demonstrated through like church and worship. And if you've ever been in a church setting where everyone, 50, 100, 200, sometimes 1,000 people in a church are singing the same song with the same intention, pushing this sort of unified energy into the space that they're co-inhabiting during a service, you feel that. And that energy can manifest in really unusual ways. I mean, there's stories all through the Bible of people worshiping and seeing angels or little flames appearing over their heads and stuff. But there is something really, I think, fundamentally true about like we can project, create, combine energy to produce something else or to influence something else. And that idea of like there might be a ghost or a spirit whose energy is diminishing that we could potentially help replenish for a period or something. Again, like the implications of what that could mean if you learned to direct that energy is fascinating. Have you done any work or thought in that space, like in terms of your interaction with spirits? Like, what's that like?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think in general, just thinking of Halloween, right? Like, it's not just like some, yay, spooky girl, ha ha ha. Like, it's literally, there's a reason, whether it's through ancient, pagan practice or whatever, Dia de los Muertos and, South America. Like, there's all kinds of cultural and spiritual ties and traditions and folklore. But whether you believe in the very woo aspect of a portal opens, right, on October 31st for 24 hours, that, hey, the veil is dropped, the veil is not here, or it's just the intention and energy between all of us thinking of like, it's spooky, it's creepy, there's ghosts, there's goblins, right? There's just a different energy, you know what I mean? So whether it's like psychosomatic or like you actually believe in what that is, either way, we all notice a shift. So for me, I do think the veil is thinner there, whether it is because of these reasons of, the solstice and this and the sun and the that and the pagan stuff about it, or it is the fact that like so many people are thinking about people who they've lost in their life and dead people and ghosts and goblins and ghouls, that it's just bringing that energy a little bit closer. Yeah. And so that's definitely something like I use in terms of like honoring people that I've lost. It's cool. Like I always leave out like offerings. I'll write down their names. I'll leave flowers, and I just like kind of put it in a very intentional place. And it was cool. A couple of years ago, I put out like wine in like little tiny chalices for everybody. And when we woke up the next morning, all the wine was gone, and it was inside, and we don't have like pets or anything. And it was like, and it wasn't a lot. Like, could it have possibly evaporated if like all the circumstances were right? Maybe, but like it was definitely more than like a couple ounces. So anyway.
No, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've experienced a similar thing in terms of leaving an offering. When I was in my early 20s, I joined a ghost hunting team down in Australia because I was really curious. And I was like, I've seen weird stuff growing up. I've had weird experiences, and I wasn't sure I was like, I'll just go ghost hunting with these guys and I'll see if I can see anything. And they, like we were at a haunted house once, and it genuinely was like the scariest place I've ever had to spend, 16 hours. And similarly, there was like an offering left of like in the middle of this ballroom of, it was an alcohol of some kind, and they had put like in a little ramekin and they put salt around it. And I think it was within a period of like 20 minutes, it was gone. It was the weirdest thing I've ever, like we left the room, we all came back in, and it was all gone. And we looked around to see if it had leaked. Nothing had happened. And I kind of blocked that out in my mind because I was like, that's too confronting for me to deal with right now.
Right?
Yeah.
That's very cool. Wow.
Yeah. I like too, because we're talking about having intention and how that gives power to these spirits, right? And what I really enjoy is thinking about this in a different way, where it's the Skywatcher team with Jake Barber with UAPs, where they're saying that they're these psionic teams they're gathering together, and they're basically through consciousness they're luring these UAPs in, and they're able to capture them on video because there's this team of people that are effectively like meditating or directing their intention towards these crafts, and they're bringing them in. And this has been documented, and there's video crews that are capturing it, and it's repeatable and all these things. So that's what really excites me about all of this, is that there are definitely people out there that don't believe in ghosts. But then when you hear something like that that's repeatable and that you're actually capturing on video, and if we can get to the point where we're saying, okay, you know what, like this is repeatable, there is definitely something here, then all of a sudden everything that we're talking about now that is like quote unquote unprovable, it becomes like, well, yeah, if we can do this on this side, then of course that, if we get 20 people together and go into a certain area where we know someone was brutally murdered or something tragic happened or whatever the case is, and we all put our intention into trying to communicate, yeah, it's starting to make like a lot of sense, at least to me, I don't know.
Right. But it's funny. It's so funny when people are like, well, there's no empirical evidence, right? And like, I don't know what it's going to take for people to really fully accept it. And like, I don't get mad when people are like, well, I don't believe in ghosts. I'm like, of course you don't. It's not common. I'm not going to fault you or be like, well, you're wrong, you know, because like I can't show them what I see.
Sure.
But I have had at least, 3 times through technology, I've captured like very clear spirit, whether it was an EVP, a photo. I mean, at least 2 photos of like, that's a person. Come on. Like my friend's house growing up was so haunted. We got EVPs, we've got photos. We showed her mom and she was so religious and so against accepting the fact that obviously too, it's like, think of the real world factors. You have a mortgage, you have your bills, you have everything tied up there. You can't just drop it and move, So she's like, you guys are tricking me. You guys made that up. You did that on the computer. That's not real. It's like, no, it's real. It's real. How could we make it up? She's like, I don't know. Get that away from me. Don't show me ever again. And it's like, well, we have this great evidence and no one will ever, like, oh, well, like, anyway.
I mean, there's been some interesting experiments done. I'm not sure. Are you guys familiar with the 21 gram experiment back in like the 1900s? For those that don't know, it was an experiment done by, I think it was Dr. Duncan McDougall, I think his name was, if I'm not mistaken. And basically he weighed a person's body when they were alive. And then when they passed, they weighed it again. And they found that there was a difference of 21 grams essentially. And that became known as the weight of the soul essentially. So I guess the question I would have, and I think you've already kind of answered it, but what do you think these spirits are? Do you think that they are humans that previously lived and then they passed and then they're trapped in some sort of purgatory or afterlife and they're kind of, their spirit resides in a different dimension? Like what do you think they are that you're seeing?
It's there's like not an easy answer because it's like so many. It's like the answer is like yes, like you know what I mean, but like no. Overall, yes, I have seen humans that have passed on that are either trapped on this plane, leaving this plane, or coming back for a visit. I've seen a lot of and encountered a lot of other darker energies that for me like aren't of this world. I don't qualify or classify myself as like a religious person, but like I have seen like what looked to be very like stereotypical demonic type creatures in my life as well. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but like, I don't want anything to do with it. But I've also just had like theater ghosts are my favorite, like theater spirits, because a lot of times it's not a human that has passed away. It's like you were saying with the church stuff, with the worship, with that intentional energy, right? Like, especially like high school theaters, like there is, or community theaters, right? There's no such like drama that goes on there with the humans, like it's like this amalgamation of crazy energy between the shows that happen, the recycled, just like people going and experiencing something, having these big moments of catharsis, having the applause, like having big energetic moments. And then having, again, like I think in high school, right? Like the hormones, the testosterone, like everything is so high stakes. And like the competition is so high. Like, when you're in high school, like everything is like, it means so much.
Emotional peak, right?
Yes, emotional peaks.
Yeah.
So like our high school theater ghost was great. Like it wasn't just me, like everyone was seeing and having experiences with this thing that was in our theater, but it wasn't like a human. It almost felt more like this ball of like crazy, but it
kind of like an amalgam of all the energy that's accumulated there over time. And
exactly.
And like churches and theaters are these places where we go to feel emotion.
Even like sports arenas, right? I bet a lot of sports facilities and like locker rooms, I bet they have weird shit going on back there, because especially think of as like a professional athlete, like you have millions of dollars riding on you. Like I would be so excited or curious to interview some guys who are like, do you see weird shit in the locker rooms? Because like, oh my God, the stakes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, very true.
That's very true. I never thought of it that way either. Like when I think of ghosts and spirits, I think of like one entity or like one spirit, almost as you would think of a human. But that's really interesting. I never considered that it could be just like an energy of multiple spirits, or just of an almost like an event, even almost maybe perhaps that is trapped in a certain location or that can be felt. I remember walking into like Veterans Stadium for the first time. It's in Philly, or it's demolished now, but my parents took me to my first like professional baseball game when I was like 8 years old. I remember walking to that stadium and just like feeling that like in my gut, like this emotion of like, wow, and that's I can relate to what you're saying, even though I've never seen something like that.
Yeah, in a way, it's a sacred place, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and think about this, right? Like, go with me on this. Like, close your eyes, take a breath.
Okay.
Imagine all of a sudden in your body, what you just walked into a hospital. What does that feel like? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that is such a visceral thing. Like, like it's like, hey, there's birth, there's death, there's sickness, there's worry, we're running, there's a car accident. Like you're not usually there for something fun. Even if someone is giving birth, it can be traumatic. It's a very heightened experience. There's a reason why people are like, I don't like hospitals. It's not just like,
The tons of trauma.
Graveyards as well. Like I have a graveyard that's down the street from me in a park, and my daughter was like, I was going to walk through the graveyard, and she was like, no. She's 8, so she has that like instinctual thing. Like, I don't want to do that. It's very real. It's tangible for sure.
It seems like places where people go to process emotional energy, or to leave emotional energy behind, like at a graveyard, like at that truly that emotional energy that you are leaving there stays there, and kind of continues, and then melds, and you end up in this scenario where you walk into a hospital and you feel it. You mentioned Courtney seeing something that was a bit more in the demonic spectrum, or gave you those vibes.
Yeah.
What about the other way? Have you seen or had experiences with things that come across as angelic?
It's funny. I haven't actually seen like an angel, right? Like I haven't seen something that felt incredibly joyful and holy. I have seen human spirits that are so at peace and at rest that have come through for a visit. That's like been like a remarkable emotional experience. But it's been like, oh, hey, this is so-and-so's grandma, or this is like one specific that was like the most meaningful was like the owner of like my friend's house that they had purchased, the previous owner, and her husband had built her the house. And so she was there, and she was like basically telling me how happy she was that these two are living there now, because it reminded her, sorry, I was getting emotional. It reminded her of her and her husband. And so like she was like crying and telling me, and she was showing me like this tree. She's like, my husband planted this tree for me. And like, so when I'm ready, I'll leave. But like for now, like I'm just so happy, so like, but yeah, in terms of like, like the other way, actually, that's interesting. I haven't thought about that. Yeah. I haven't ever seen like an angel, quote unquote.
Did you ever figure out? I listened to an episode today. I think it was your latest one, the finale, where you saw the boy when you're doing laundry. Did you ever figure out? Did you ever figure out anything about that? No.
No. That was just a few weeks ago. It's cool though. There's been a lot since then. I think I mentioned in that last episode, right? And I haven't released season 2 yet. I'm still working on it, but
no spoilers.
No, you're fine. I mean, yeah. I'm like, no. I started taking Lexapro. I started taking antidepressants for the first time in my life in February. I was very curious what that would mean in terms of like this thing I got going on, right? Like, have I been crazy all these years? Will it shut it off? Will it do whatever? And I've seen spirit more clearly than I have in my entire life. Now that all of like the noise of my diagnosed OCD and anxiety and depression is contained, and my brain is working functionally, I'm just like seeing things clear as day again, like when I was young almost. Like I'm not burdened with, I'm not burdened with my own like mess, especially living in New York City, like the noise, the sound, the overstimulation. My brain was working at like 200% all the time to try to like filter. So even when I was seeing stuff, it had to have been really strong for me to see like a full body, or it was just getting like, again, those shadows or those wisps or things that were kind of like, ooh. And now I'm like seeing shit everywhere again, like 3 times a week. I'm like, oh, that's not there. You know what I mean? Because like my brain's finally quiet. I'm just existing again.
That's fascinating. That's really interesting.
The boy though was the first one I saw since starting the meds. And
I remember
I've obviously done laundry weekly, but every time I've been in there, I'm just kind of like, do I want to like keying in? Like, do I want to key in to the other side and be like, hey, do you need help? Who are you? But like, I just haven't honestly had like the energy to try to deal with that little boy with no shoes on. Like
the no shoes part was the part that got me too. I was like, there's something unsettling about that.
It almost felt like traveler, like he was a traveler energy. Like I don't know what that really means, but seeing the no shoes felt like something more like different, because again, like I don't know. It felt like he was like nomadic, if that makes sense. Like maybe I won't see him again. I've lived here 4 years. I hadn't seen him before, so that was just kind of odd.
Right.
But
There was you mentioned like keying in to like that other realm or whatever you want to call it, and that got me thinking, because I was listening to a Danny Jones Concrete podcast recently, and he had a guest on. I forget the guest's name. I can maybe add it here in post, but he was like someone that has done DMT, like the hallucination drug, like a bunch. And he was talking about this one experience where he took it and he was tripping, basically, or he was hallucinating and doing this whole thing with DMT. And he encountered an entity, as people say that they do. And he said that this entity was like very annoyed and almost like startled, like, whoa, like, what are you doing in here? Like, I was minding my own business and now you're in here, and he was kind of like annoyed. Like, what do you want?
Yeah.
And he said that the entity was giving, like telepathically communicating to him and saying like, what's your question? Like, why are you here? What are you looking for? And and the guy was speaking of like a traveler, was just like, I'm just passing through. I'm just, I don't really have a question. And he said that apparently this entity like got mad and basically kicked him out. And he said he woke up on his meditation chair, like sober as whatever, like he didn't do anything. And he said that he tried to take more DMT to get back into that like liminal space or whatever you want to call it. And he couldn't. It took him months to get back into that point where he would be able to like be allowed back in. And that's just like that, just hearing you talk about it, I can't help like my mind try to like draw these like comparisons between what you're experiencing and that. And is it possible that that little boy is just the energy from either someone else in a different dimension or something that is doing their version of DMT, and you're seeing them and you're the entity that's like annoyed, like, what are you doing here, traveler? Like, get out of here. And then, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It makes me wonder if there's something there.
I think it's so possible. And doesn't it make your brain hurt, right? I mean, I think like you, I was like, I want to also start this so that like, I want to look for some answers, right? Like, am I schizophrenic? Like, let's see. Let's get enough people on this that are like, I think she needs a better psychiatrist, like who knows? Like, I was like, let's get some answers. And I feel more lost the longer I go into this. Cause like, it's like all this stuff you're saying, like there's just more and more and more hypothesizing and people with their own personal experiences that I'm like, I've never even heard of that. And like, it's like you kind of have to know your boundaries of when to stop before your brain feels like it's going to explode. But I think, yeah, absolutely. That little boy could have just been like a time loop, something that's kind of new to me that I feel like is totally possible. Like maybe all the stuff I'm seeing is just shit that's already happened. And like, I'm just somehow like seeing it line up right. Or, you know what I mean? Like, they've also had them speaking directly to me, like giving me messages. And then I'm like telling someone like, is this a thing? And they're like, how the fuck do you know that about me? So it's like, okay, maybe it's not just a time, but yeah, that little boy totally could have been based on how he was dressed. Like my building was built in, like 1907 or something. So like maybe he was just down in that area like in 1968 and he just like was popping back around, or like I was seeing that again. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, I also appreciate that you are very open about like your mental health, because I am as well. I've struggled with anxiety like pretty much my whole adult life. And I'll never forget this. I went to some outpatient like therapy place when it was real bad. And there was like a therapist there that said something to the group that just like really changed my perspective about mental health. And you mentioned like schizophrenia, and there were a couple people there that had that as well, I think. Mm-hmm. And he said that like, the word schizophrenia or generalized anxiety disorder or depression or whatever your flavor of the week may be, is just a word. It's just a word to help people describe something that's happening. And I often wonder, people that are schizophrenic that see other things, or that, have different personalities, whatever the case is, that maybe the veil is just like thinner with them, and there is nothing quote unquote wrong with them, or that there's not like, that's what our modern society has kind of deemed it to be. Same with autistic children. They're now seeing with the telepathy tapes that, that they're...
Yes. Crazy. I'm going to do an episode on that. It's insane, right?
It's so good. So we talk about it all the time.
Oh my gosh.
But that's a good example of what I'm trying to say, is that like, I know growing up...
It could just be that...
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just going to say, it sounds like you're saying it could just be that the Courtney and people who have these experiences are just more like biologically either evolved or capable of doing it, but it could be a biological cause. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
Especially because of like the genetics, right? Of knowing like, okay, my mom has stuff, my grandma has stuff, my great-great-grandmother was the town psychic that people went to like get help. You know, it's
Wow.
it's like, and it's also on my other side of the family too. I've learned it's like, it's just weird. It's like, sometimes maybe it is just kind of like a genetic thing. Like I also have like shit ovaries and a bladder disease, but hey, my bonus is, you know, I I can see ghosts. So maybe that's my equalization, you know. But yeah, I will say that on schizophrenia, right? Like something that was scaring me for a long time, especially as I was like going into my 30s, I was like seeing on TikTok a lot of the people who have schizophrenia basically creating videos of the shadow figures that they see and being like, this is kind of the closest to like the things that I see, right? And I was like, oh, I have seen things that look sort of like that. That's not always what I see, but that kind of is what I see. That's what got me thinking like, okay, I really need to take mental health seriously. I need to like really get into the doctor and see so that I'm not also like spouting like I can see things or like trying to like make myself seem cool when it's like, girl, you need help, you know? So anyway, the other thing that's been very cool is following these creators who have dogs who help them because I love dogs. I love animals so much. I did an episode today about animal like communication, but this person, you know, with schizophrenia has basically trained their dog to turn and react if someone's actually there, energetically, human or whatever, and not react if they're not there. So they can calm themselves down to know, okay, there's not someone here. I can relax, you know?
Dogs are the best.
Right? I know,
Dogs
we
are
don't
the
deserve
best.
them.
Dogs are the best. What the hell?
I will just say that was kind of validating for me because I'm like, I've never questioned if they're actually there or not because of how visceral of an experience it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Makes
sure.
sense.
Is there something like an event that you can think of that was maybe like the most intense feeling or sighting or something like that that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, I've had it's so funny. I was talking with my boyfriend today about it because I'm like, oh, like how do I narrow it down? He's like, do you want my opinion? Like what I like to hear the most? I'm like, yes, because I don't know, you know. He's like, the ones I like to hear the most are this one and this one. So I'll share them, and also just for time wise, right? Because my most impactful one is like a long story. That's in the Christmas compilation episode. So if anyone wants to hear it, or I can tell it if you have like, you know, but it's like a 22-minute story. So I'll
Let's push them to
the side. Perfect.
to your
Yeah,
episode to see that one
Great.
because that way we can maybe get some more listens on that. And then if you have another one that maybe is unique,
We've got
or
shorter
different.
ones. Shorter ones.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I've got a couple New York ones, which I think are fun and scary. So I mentioned my building is very old. It was built in the early 1900s. And my first Halloween here, we had lived here for about a month and a half. At the time, I was dog walking professionally, you know, being my theater actor, trying to audition, trying to just like hustle. And I was like sweaty. It was like New York. It was, you know, October, but like 81. And I walked in the building. I said hi to the staff and I was like, okay. I turned to go to the elevator and we have a very long lobby. It's probably like, I don't know, 100 feet one way and then like another the other way. But I looked up, you know, as I was getting my keys out of my bag to go to the elevator, and I looked up and there was an old woman with like a walker, like about to go into one of the apartments. There was a man with like sort of like a fedora type hat and a trench coat. And then there was another man who was like worked for the post office. Like, but it like what caught me is that he looked retro, right? Like his outfit wasn't what a lot of like the mail carriers wear. Mm-hmm. So I like did a double take and then I was like, oh shit. Like I could see they were all that, it was that opacity thing, right? They were just not quite fully there in the room. Like you could just barely see through the three of them. And the minute I realized it, I like inhaled and at the same time, all three of them turned their heads and looked and met my eyes at the same time. Like, oh, she sees us. But it was like this very measured, same like, huh, you know?
Whoa.
And I was like, like, you know, grabbed my son and I like ran and just like went into the apartment. And I was like, oh my God. I was like telling my boyfriend, like, I just saw 3 ghosts downstairs. I'm like, this building's so old. New York is so fucking old. I'm not used to this, you know, like just seeing them so frequently. But the crazy thing, but the crazy thing was that like one of the ghosts got basically like, again, like I call it, like I got validated. They refinished a part of our basement, and I was taking the trash out one night. This was probably like a year and a half later. And I was taking the trash down, and I was like, oh my God, they finished this corner of the basement, and they had hung up all this art. And I was like, oh, this is sick. So I was like looking at the photos and the art, and it was like basically photos of when the building was originally built. And there were like these 4 ladies in like their flapper outfits, like by like like a garage and an old car. And then there was 2 men standing next to each other. And one of the men in the photo was the man I saw with the fedora and like the trench coat in that fucking photo.
No way.
Yes. And I was like, and I like, again, like, ooh, like lost my breath. And he was there in the basement. Like he's down there always. He does not like me. He does not like he definitely is like a wealthy spirit, or like, I don't know, maybe just entitled. I don't know what his deal is. Like, I don't come from money. I'm very lucky to live in this place that I live, but it just like this whole vibe from him is like, get out of here. Like, get out of my way. You don't deserve to be here. You're trash. Like, I hate his energy when I go down there, because it's just like, stay away from me. But anyway, like seeing him in the photo, seeing him upstairs, seeing him again, it was like, oh shit, it's him. So that's
it's like confirmation almost that, like, obviously if you're in that photo, you're not alive anymore. So it was like 100% like, holy shit. Wow.
Yes. Yeah. From like, I think it was like 1921. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I have one more kind of like short one, if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it. That alone though. I'm like, holy crap, that's great.
Oh yeah. Okay, good. It's like really woo-woo, so you have to go with me here, because it sounds really far-fetched, really made up. And this is why I'd never like to tell this one, but it's like my boyfriend's favorite, because he's like, it's one of like the scariest. So I'm like, oh, okay, so just go with me here.
I'm with you.
Before we moved into this apartment, we lived super far uptown, like close to the Bronx. And basically, the stop we were at was 191st Street. And it is down 17 levels underground. Like, you're like in the earth, And it's hot. We had moved here. We had lived here maybe like 2 weeks. And this was like my maybe second or third time taking the subway. So already it's like very like, like, oh, yeah. Like it's like a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And we were down at the platform, my boyfriend and I. We were going to the grocery store, and so there's, an uptown train and a downtown train, and then the middle lane is like an express train that like flies by super fast. And when it all happens at once, it's like a huge cacophony of sounds that's very scary and jarring and kind of like, whoa, very overstimulating. And so that happened, right? We had one going this way, one going that way, express. There's like a baby crying. There's music. There's like, like, dun, 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 dun. Like, it's just like typical movie in New York. And I started hearing a man like screaming, like, ah, 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 and I catch, I touch like the tile beside me, and I like look, and in the center of the expressway, there was like a man, like who, I just feel so silly, who had been like basically cut in half. It was like his torso up, and he was pulling himself, like putting his palms on the ground in front of him and pulling himself, like hand pull, hand pull. And he was like reaching up, like, like moaning and yelling. And I was like frozen in fight or flight, like looking at him. And I like looked to my right and looked to, it's like I just felt like I was in shock. And I like looked to my right and looked to my left, and nobody was reacting. So I was like, fuck, that's a fucking ghost? God. Are you kidding me right now? Jeez. And so like I was just looking at him, and he was like reaching to me. And so I like, once I realized nobody else saw him, I turned like this, like kind of curled up to the wall, and I was like looking at the ground. And my boyfriend was walking from, he turned around, he's like, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Like just walk. And so I'm like walking, but he is like screaming and moaning, like, help me. And he like it looked almost like maybe if I had to give a time period, like between like late 80s and 90s, like kind of a charcoal gray like blazer with like a white button up, like that was all obviously like fucked up, and then like a tie, like a gray and white tie that was kind of like strewn over his shoulder while he was like yeah. So
Wow.
that happened, and I didn't tell anyone. And then once we got to where we were going, I was like, so hey, this is what I saw. My boyfriend was like, oh my God, like, are you okay? Jesus Christ, like, holy shit, you know? And we've been together for 11 years almost. And he was like a complete skeptic when we first met. He's like, these aren't real. And so I was like, okay. And then like through like myself, like, you know, explaining what I'm experiencing and also proving myself right time and time again in front of it, he's like, I don't see what you see, but like, I'll believe whatever you say, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever like looked into that? Like, is it possible that someone died in that same location, that same like subway area,
I mean,
possibly?
like,
I wonder if that's,
yeah. So there's not like a nice way to say this, but I mean, I'll say probably 2 to 5 times a month, people jump in front of the cars or get pushed. I mean,
true.
The amount of times I'm on my way to work and I get the alert that's like, this train is delayed because someone has been pushed in front of the track. This one has delayed because of someone falling onto the track. You know, it's like, where would you even begin to research it? Because it's unfortunately just so common, you know?
That is true. That's a sad part of it, I guess. But
yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. That's gonna make me think a lot tonight when I'm laying in bed. Maybe I'm like, oh geez, Courtney's in my head now. Damn it.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's the burden we bear. It's all good.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you know, with your boyfriend that he, you know, been with him for a long time and that he has kind of grown to appreciate almost even your ability to see these spirits. Has this affected other personal relationships with you? I know you said your family have also kind of, this gift has kind of been like passed down to you, but like do you hesitate to tell people sometimes? Like how do you navigate that in your daily life?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, truly up until again like the pod, like I wouldn't tell anybody. Like it would just be like my closest friend, my parents, and my boyfriend, you know? And then every now and then if we were like in college doing a ghost tour or something cute and funny was going on, I'd be like, oh, I'm kind of sensitive to that stuff. So it's like it can kind of help, right? Or like I've had it like everyone's like, ooh, has anyone ever had anything spooky happen? And I'm like, oh, I have. And then I like tell them and they're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, oh shit, I overshared. You know what I mean? But like, no, I would never tell anyone. So that's what's been very interesting navigating now. The pod is people, you know, I mentioned I went to school for acting. I used to be a very serious actor and like that's not really my passion anymore. It's not really my thing. And it's cool. We grow, we learn. But people ask me now, like, so especially like I said, I'm a florist. So my coworkers or customers will be like, hey, yeah, so like, what are you doing in New York? It's like, well, I came here for theater, but now I have a podcast. And they say, well, what's your podcast about? I say, I interview people about their paranormal experiences and I see how they react to that. And if they go like, oh, paranormal, like ghosts and stuff, then I'm like, great, not going to do it.
Yeah, not going to do it.
Or sometimes I do to be like, yeah, fuck you. Like, and they're, you know, like, who knows, you know? And if they go, oh, cool, I love that stuff. What made you want to do it? I say, like, it's literally taken like practice, but I'm like, well, I actually see ghosts. And then, you know, it kind of lands how it lands or it doesn't. But either way, it's like, I don't know, look on my Instagram, watch my videos, take what you will. I don't care. Like, I don't need to. People have taken advantage of it as well in terms of like my personal relationships, like especially living in LA. Everyone there who practices like, I'm a light worker, I'm this, I'm that. I've had a lot of people take advantage of my energy and what I've got going on. So I've had to really learn how to navigate that with other people who call themselves like spiritually connected and and how I protect my energy around people like that.
Yeah, I can imagine it's really hard to navigate that. You know, even I say this a lot too, that I feel like ghosts, like the word ghosts has the same type of energy as like UFO or like flying saucer had.
Sure. 100%.
You know, decades ago, even up until recently, and that's why they changed it to UAP. You know, and I think if people, if you just said ghost in a more scientific way, like leftover energy that's being directed through this and the different dimension, like if there was a different term for it, I think it would remove a lot of the stigma. Because when people, I really think that when people hear ghost, they think of like the sheet over,
like ooh, yeah,
exactly, like exactly. So. Yeah, I definitely empathize with that because I'm sure that's probably a pretty heavy burden to bear sometimes. But hopefully we're going to change the stigma though. I'm confident that we're going to do that at some point.
Without like opening like a fresh can of worms and stuff, you mentioned like earlier on in the conversation that you kind of alluded to the fact, Courtney, that you kind of have categories for different kinds of spirits or entities you see. I'm assuming you probably, as you've grown up with this, you've had to come up with your own categorizing system. Like, oh, it's one of these kinds, or I'm seeing someone who's maybe just a shadow versus a very detailed person. And like, first of all, is that true? Like, have you had to kind of define your own categories for the different sorts of things you're seeing? And if that is true, like, what are the biggest categories? Like, what do most of the experiences you have fall under?
That's so funny. Honestly, that's a great idea. I should like get more organized about it. Like, I think maybe that would be helpful. Like, that's actually a great idea. I think I have like very basic categories, right? Which is like, you're human, you lived here, you died here, or you're someone visiting. And then there's like energy amalgamation, right? Of just like, of just like, ooh.
Oh, that's cool.
We all do it. Why is it mine doing it?
Can we do it? Can I do it too? What's going on?
This happens sometimes when I do this and I can't get it to do it again. Well, hey, good energy. There we go. Weird.
There we go.
There you go.
Maybe it's the ghost who passed away in my apartment. His name's William. That could be him.
Oh, what's up, William?
But anyway, yeah, then there's just like random energy, like yucky energy. And that's like when you walk in your house and you're like, it's heavy in here. Why is this weird? Or like, we talked about like places that have heavy energy, like theaters and stuff, but like also negative things like with like, places that like burn down from a fire, or, if I can share quickly, like I was on tour one time, the show, and we were stopping at a venue in Oregon, and immediately upon arrival, I didn't say anything. All my castmates were like, whoa, so what is this place? Like what? And it was a college campus, but we were like, this is funky. And it turned out it had been a place that a mass shooting had happened like a few months prior. The way it was so visceral, like the fear and the heaviness and the grief, like it was horrifying. So anyway, there's also just things of like, like whoa, this is like an energy thing, an energy ball or an energy whatever. And then the other thing is just like creatures or entities. I like the word entities more so, of just like not a person, more like an entity, right? I've like nature spirits, wind spirits, things of like, okay, you're like passing through, or you're, from the forest, or you're whatever, you know what I mean? Or like, so yeah, I don't have a lot of fun categories. It's kind of those three, I guess, I work with within my brain of like energy, entity, and humans,
I have a fun question to piggyback on that, I think. So you live in a pretty dream location in terms of like spooky locations, I think, in New York. There's everywhere you look, I'm sure there's like you said, there's old buildings and things that have happened. But are there any other dream locations that you're like dying to explore? Like if you could travel somewhere and go somewhere to explore haunted places or places that have a lot of energy like that?
It's so funny, right? Like me, the person, Courtney, is like, no, I don't want to go to haunted places. It's traumatic for me. I don't like it. But like me now, Courtney, like the content creator and like podcaster, I kind of have a different answer now. And it's like, okay, obviously I have work to do in terms of like protecting my energy and like learning more about how to help these spirits. That's a big thing on my list, my goals this year. But to answer that would be Edinburgh, for sure, Edinburgh, Scotland. I know, I don't think I could, I don't know, right? It's like the catacombs and all this other shit. I mean, I've just heard, sorry, I shouldn't disrespect it like that. But, it's like the infrastructure. And I will say Australia was pretty haunted too. There was, when I was in Sydney, there, like we were at the Opera House, my boyfriend was performing there. We went to the botanical gardens there, and there was like just like a beach and like a long pier.
Yep.
And I was like, there are like soldiers everywhere. Like there are like just people who are like in the water and pissed everywhere. And it was like, sorry, that just because we're talking about travel, that anyway, but like that was surprising. You know, anywhere that has a lot of history. I've been to Salem. It wasn't as haunted as I thought, which was cool to see. I think because there's so many witches and practitioners there that they're like clearing energy constantly and like helping.
Makes sense.
So like, again, it would be a really hard one, but would be so cool and fun, I think would be Louisiana, to go to like New Orleans and different parts of Savannah as well. But yeah, in terms of like haunted locations, I don't think I could do like the penitentiaries and like the tuberculosis wards and Gettysburg, places of extreme like fatalities and intense sickness. Like I'm not really interested, you know?
I would say as a fan, like that's exciting for me to see content in these locations. Would be like, I would definitely tune in to see that for sure. And also, I like what you said too, because it seems like it is kind of like changing your outlook on. I keep calling it a gift. I don't know if that's the right like phrase or not,
No,
but
it's like a weird word, but
ability maybe is a better way to say it.
Yeah, I think that's a better
Ability?
one. Yeah.
Okay, this ability that you have, like it seemed like you were, a little bit hesitant to bring it up and things like that. But now it seems like because of the podcast that you're able to open up a little bit more about it and share a little bit more. And it seems like it's a good like healing thing for you. So that's from my perspective at least.
Yeah, it's been super freeing, super duper freeing to feel like I am authentically myself for the first time, maybe in my life. And like, again, this need of like being a theater actor and feeling like I need to like have a creative outlet and like being like, no, I can like put music and sounds under my own personal stories of things I've experienced has been like, anyway, blah, blah, blah. But yeah.
No, yeah, we're definitely kindred spirits in that way. Cause I in my 20s and stuff, like I said, I want to be in a band. Like all I want to do is go on tour and be signed and all these things. And I'm 38 now. So gosh, we're probably close to a decade. I was like, I'm too old to be in a band. That's not going to happen. That dream's dead. And yeah, finding the podcast for me has been a really great like creative outlet, and changing my perspective on things as well has been a really like eye-opening thing. So it's pretty awesome.
It's great.
We have a lot in common in that way, I think. Okay, so I think a good question to end on would be, if there's someone else that's listening that maybe that has the same ability that you have, and they're maybe feeling the same way that you have felt in the past about sharing your ability with people, or kind of communicating that you can see spirits and things like that, what advice would you have for them to help them?
I mean, definitely if you can, find someone in your life that you can share your experiences with, whether that's like a close person, a loved one, a friend, or hey, someone in this niche paranormal world on the internet, right? Somebody you can talk openly about this stuff with. Because especially if you do have like an ability and like they're coming through to you, like, and you don't have a choice, it can be like very stressful, so it's important to have someone you can be like, oh my God, I saw this lady, she won't leave me alone and I don't know what to do, so to get advice, right? Like I've learned so much from other people who have these abilities, or witches or practitioners, or like religious people, of like, put a cross, put some salt or whatever. And it's crazy to see like testing like what works and what doesn't in terms of like protecting your space. So like find people to talk to would be one key advice. But on the flip side of that, my second big piece of advice, which it's taken me a long time to learn, is like trust yourself and your intuition over anyone else when it comes to like right and wrong, right? I think so much of this, again, because we live in such a hyper like religious country, like this very like Episcopalian like Christianity, like is a very like within America. And it's like, not everything is light and dark and heaven and hell and this and that. And like, you're not good or bad if you're on either side. Like my biggest thing, especially with the pod and like with the universe, is like, you're on your own journey, and like, you don't have to live in one zone or the other, if that makes sense. Like there's so much gray in between. And like, if you don't pray every night and like meditate with white light, it doesn't mean you're like Satanist and you're going to be dragged away by demons. And it's like, if you're not like Satanist and you're like, well, maybe I want to like do something nice for, I don't know. Does this make sense? Like, just like live on your own path. And like, I feel like there's a lot of power in neutrality, not like submissive neutrality, but being like, I'm here and I have the choice of how I initiate and how I react to things. Know that no spirit is going to, you know, have more power than you are because you are here on this realm. Anyway, so bottom line, like listen to your gut.
All right, well, hopefully everyone enjoyed that episode with Courtney from Jaunty Haunts. Speaking to her reminded me of how beautiful and messy this life really is. You know, people are just walking around trying to pay rent, and people like Courtney are having to deal with some things that we just don't understand. And I'm not just talking about ghosts, although in Courtney's case, ghosts. I'm just talking about the weight that we all carry every single day. Some of us more than others. And some of these things science just hasn't picked up on yet. Listen, I don't know what you believe. Heck, I don't even know what I believe half the time. But one thing I do know is that I am really happy and glad that there's other people out there like Courtney that are trying to figure it out. So huge thanks to Courtney for being hilarious and vulnerable all at the same time somehow. Your podcast is awesome, and I encourage anyone that's listening right now to go check it out. You won't be disappointed. If you like this episode, please give us a follow on Instagram at Close Encounter Club. And if you're feeling even more generous, leaving a 5-star review on wherever you're watching this is awesome. That really goes a long way to help the podcast. This podcast was created and hosted by me, Justin Gearhart, produced by Josh Barretto, mixed and mastered by Brett Jarvis. And you've been listening to the Close Encounter Club.